Hey, good evening, good afternoon, good morning, everyone. We are just waiting for all of you to connect and join the virtual room, and then we'll get started soon. Thank you so much for being with us. All right, we'll probably wait one more minute. Okay, thank you, everyone. And those who are already here, please feel free to drop in the chat where you are joining from. We'd love to know who is in the room with us. Um, and we're looking forward to engaging with you today. I hope you enjoy this presentation and you find it insightful, and we're looking forward to answering any questions you may have as well. I think I've got a question from Joseph. No, no need to transfer to the room. We will be starting in a moment. And while we're waiting for a few more people to join in, we have our slide, our LinkedIn profiles. You can connect with us already so that you can ask any questions after this presentation or connect with us to find out more about our programs. Okay. Yes, and it's April Fool's Day, April the 1st. Hello, Hunky Dory. I'm glad you could join us. Yeah, we have audiences joining from all over the world: Stockholm, India, Tokyo, Germany, Frankfurt, Johannesburg, London. Yes, and Georgia, United States, Senegal. Wow, that is absolutely amazing. So I think we'll start now. So good afternoon, good morning, good evening, everyone, and welcome to today's Alumni in Action webinar. Thank you so much for joining us. It's really wonderful to see such a strong and global audience. My name is Christine Homoki, and together with my colleague, Toniel Ballard, I'm one of the senior program consultants for Impact Finance and Sustainability Executive Education at Said Business School, University of Oxford. I work closely with organizations, investors, and individuals, exploring how capital can be mobilized for positive social and environmental outcomes. I'm part of the program recruitment team for this portfolio, led by Carrie Reed, who is in the room with us. She is my manager and the program recruitment manager for Impact Finance and Sustainability Executive Education at Said Business School. Together, we support participants across our impact-focused executive programs, from first inquiry through alumni engagement initiatives, just like this webinar. So a little bit about our executive education and impact finance programs at the business school. Here at the Said Business School, executive education equips senior leaders with the insight and tools to address complex global challenges, combining rigorous academic thinking with real-world application. Our impact finance and sustainability programs focus on mobilizing capital for social and environmental outcomes, spanning the full ecosystem from impact measurement and blended finance to investment strategy, governance, and systems change. The curriculum is interdisciplinary and practitioner-led, drawing on Oxford faculty, global experts, and case-based learning grounded in live market, policy, and organizational contexts. Participants become part of a diverse international alumni community, including investors, policymakers, entrepreneurs, foundation leaders, and corporate decision makers, working across public and private markets worldwide. Our executive style teaching approach emphasizes debate, reflection, and peer learning, ensuring programs deliver immediate practical value alongside long-term leadership and career impact. So, Carrie, I'd like you to please change to the second slide. So we'd like to welcome you all to our webinar series, Alumni in Action, Leveraging Finance for Social Impact, where we are joined by guest alumni from our executive education impact finance programs here at the University of Oxford Saïd Business School. This webinar will last about an hour and will be recorded and sent out in a follow-up email within the next week. So there will be an opportunity to view again. There will be also time for some question and answer with each speaker. So do put your questions in the Q&A section rather than in the chat. So before we start, I would like to introduce my manager, Carrie Reid, who is co-leading this webinar today and monitoring the chat. And then we'll quickly run through the agenda. So Carrie Reid, would you like to come online and introduce yourself?
Hi, Christine. Thanks so much for the introduction. My name is Carrie Reid. I am Programme Sales Manager here at Saïd Business School within the Executive Education team. I look after and manage kind of the full portfolio of impact programmes. You may have seen me at events, or if you're an alumni joining us on the webinar today, I probably have been in contact with you about alumni drinks. So always eager to engage with our alumni and get people together again. So thank you for having me and thanks for being here today.
That's amazing. We're glad to have you here, Carrie. Thanks for your support on this webinar. And we'd like to just remind our audience to stay tuned until the end to learn about our programs, upcoming dates, and our special offering for those of you attending this webinar. So stay tuned until the end. So now I think we're ready to get started and introduce our speakers. So today's session is part of our Alumni in Action series, where we showcase how our alumni are applying what they learned at Oxford in their organizations, investment strategies, and broader ecosystems. We'll be hearing directly from alumni who bring real-world perspectives on impact finance in practice, what's working, what's challenging, and how theory translates into action. It's now my pleasure to introduce our speakers. And our first speaker is Hanne Mork Gentzel, Investment Director at WillStar, where she leads impact investing activities across social and environmental themes, with a focus on translating investment strategies into practical investment and value creation approaches. Hanne has completed 2 executive programs at Oxford Saïd Business School, including the Oxford Impact Finance Innovation Program and the Impact Measurement and Management Program. These have strengthened her work in integrating impact valuation, investment decision-making, and value creation across portfolio and ecosystems, supporting WillStar's shift from traditional philanthropy towards more structured impact investing. So over to you, Hanne, to introduce yourself and talk about your amazing work at WillStar.
Hi, everyone. Pleasure to be introduced to you all today. So like Christine said, my name is Hanne. I work for WillStar, which is a small impact investing company based in Oslo, Norway. We are part of a larger family-owned investment company and family office called A. Wilhelmsen. and we are the impact platform within that sort of group of investment companies. Impact platform, what does that mean? Well, we have a pretty broad mandate. We actually have two mandates. We have one impact first mandate, which includes everything from philanthropic contributions to traditional equity investments, and also sort of hybrid solutions in between. We call that our impact first mandate because what we invest in is impact. So that's also why we call our philanthropic contribution investments. It's not about, from our perspective, sort of handing out money or funds. It's about investing in an outcome, investing in positive impact, whichever way it makes more sense to do so, whether that is financial or philanthropic contributions, or whether that is more traditional investments. In addition to that, we also have a more traditional investment mandate within venture investing. We call that our impact venture investment platform, where we invest in sustainable technologies within the built and the maritime environment, as well as in health innovations. I have been fortunate enough to attend two separate courses at Side Business School. The first one was impact measurement. That was about a month into my role at Willstar. So I had sort of transitioned from a more traditional career in consulting, in strategy consulting, where I also supported a lot of investors within private equity and etc. On commercial due diligence, strategy, value creation, etc. So it was an excellent way for me to transition into a slightly different part of the investment landscape where we invest for financial returns, but also primarily for impact. About 6 months later, I had the opportunity to also attend the Impact Finance Innovation course, which also fits really well with Willstar strategy. So Willstar started off as a philanthropic initiative. Well, basically, it was the structure around existing philanthropic initiatives within the family office. And we have developed from that into more strategic and venture philanthropy, into impact first investments, and now also all the way into more traditional venture investments. But we wanted to make sure that we were intentional with our investments, and we apply the type of investment mechanism that we think makes sense within that context. Within venture investments, it's sort of more or less obvious that it's equity investment makes more sense, but within other sort of very early stage social entrepreneur driven type of organizations, we try to think about whether a philanthropic grant is what makes more sense in that context, maybe a type of convertible instrument, or maybe a traditional type of investment. We try to tailor that as much as possible to the context and to the organization, where they are in terms of maturity, etc. And that is exactly the type of topics that we explore within that Impact Finance Innovation course, as well as also thinking about different types of structure, figuring out where we can play, also within our context, operating in Norway, and what's a little bit outside of our realm. So that was a sort of a quick introduction to Willstar and what we work on and how we work. And more than happy to take questions if anyone have anything they want to ask.
Thank you so much, Hanne. And yes, a quick reminder to our audience, we have the chat function, but if you have any specific questions for any of our speakers, please put them in the Q&A box. We're happy to ask them live. And we can also circle back to the questions later if you're still thinking of what you want to ask specifically, or if you're still typing. But in the meantime, I have a question for you, actually, Hanne. You have very articulately shared your reasons for joining the program and how what you're doing at Willstar aligns with our program curriculum. Could you share a specifically vibrant example of how you applied a particular aspect of the program through your role to date?
Well, for example, we are one of the investing parties in an investment group that was set up in Oslo, Norway, about 6 months ago. And while that was designed, it was designed to be founder friendly within that context. Basically, appreciating that a lot of social entrepreneurs or environmentally focused entrepreneurs um, sometimes struggle to find investments, especially in the current landscape as well, where sort of the market can be quite dry already. Um, and one of the kind of main things that we talk about within impact finance innovation is the fact that traditional financial structures and applications do not necessarily fit the non-hockey stick type of organization or venture. So how can we facilitate funding into those type of organizations that don't necessarily fit the mold of a traditional sort of VC fund, for example? And those conversations that we had in the course were exactly the same conversations that we had as sort of advisor, and we had the ability to provide input into the design of this new investment group, where we have defined some specific terms and a few different sort of routes that these organizations can take after being accepted in the accelerator program and receiving the investment. So depending a little bit on the trajectory from then, there are multiple mechanisms that can sort of fall into place. So either the investment converts into equity, but there's also some repayment structures possible as well for those companies who are not necessarily make sense as investment cases, but who are scaling and profitable enough to actually to repay. So that's a very sort of clear example of how we sort of took those case examples and that theory and looked at those possibilities and trying to figure out how we can fit that into our own context and to design an investment platform that was more founder friendly for these type of impact startups.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, Hannah, for sharing that. And that only goes to show how practical the insights and the learnings from our programs are and how readily implementable they are in your work as impact leaders. So I've got another question. How do you find the role of AI has impacted your role in regards to the sustainable technology investments? And was that covered in the program at all from your memory?
We did not touch a lot upon AI. If I can recall, there was one guest speaker.
That was in 2024. So maybe
Yeah.
AI was just starting.
We had one guest speaker who talked, but I think her lecture or section was more about how to navigate um, AI and sort of what falls within sort of the how to use it in a sensible way, a legal way, a moral way, etc.
Yes.
But I have to say, AI in general, when it comes to impact investing, has been quite game changing. We have now also moved from we have a pretty sort of established methodology that we use to measure and value our impact. And that has gone from, or basically developed from spreadsheets to an AI tool that we use. Obviously, there's consulting support there as well. There are real people sort of sense checking, etc. The results that we're getting. But we can now get the type of sort of insights or at least indications and first off understanding of a case within 30 minutes rather than within a week. So specifically within AI, within impact investing, AI has been quite transformational in terms of the speed in which we could get to insights.
That's amazing. Thank you, Hanne. And for our audience, you'll be pleased to know that we have now incorporated AI topics into our current curriculum, because we always tweak our curriculum to go with the times. And so this will definitely be covered in the upcoming programs. We have some questions in the Q&A, but I think we will circle back to them later during the dedicated Q&A portion of this webinar. Thank you so much, Hanne. It was lovely hearing from you, and amazing to hear your work, WillStar. So now I am going to introduce our next speaker. The next speaker is Impact Investing alumni Greg Stefan, founder and CEO of Adways, an impact advisory firm based in Zurich, Switzerland, and committed to scaling impact innovations over 3 impact sectors with a tech overlay: impact finance, digital infrastructure, and innovative policy. So Greg, over to you to introduce yourself and the amazing work you're doing at Adways.
Thank you, Christine. And Hanne, that was a fascinating presentation. Hello all, I'm Grégoire Stefan, and I'm the founder and CEO of Adways. We're an impact advisory startup, or tech pact, so to speak, based in Zurich, Switzerland. And before I move into what we do, I just want to tie it up to the course, which was a game changer for most of us. And as you can see, I joined it in 2020, or I graduated from it in 2020. That's quite a while back. And I think that this event is also a testament of our interest in kind of the structural value you can have with joining a course such as this one. So a bit of context here. It was the beginning of COVID. There was a lot of uncertainty, and it was an opportunity to pause and reflect on one's legacy and how to continue a legacy. And I'd been in the industry of impact investing for a while, and I was a shareholder of Responsibility Investments, fund management operator there, transaction manager, mostly on the Fair Agriculture Fund, but also the microfinance transactions. And I had reached, oh, is it okay if we change slide? That would be wonderful, Karen. Thank you so much. I had reached a bit of a plateau in terms of what I wanted to do, the levels of energy I had, and my values, and this drive. Where am I going to put this drive? Where am I going to put this energy? So I know I have it for another 20, 30 years. I got to take action. So with the COVID context, we were the first cohort that went online and digital. And that was at first a bit disappointing, but then I realized this is exactly how flexibility can roll out in acquiring new skills, new knowledge, and new networks. And so we had to adapt, and the course was rolled out online. And I think it's a very strong attribute. And after the course ended, everyone stayed connected through various groups. And these groups have got very senior steering partners as participants. And I find that beyond the course, what you take from it afterwards really continues. Depends on how adaptive, reactive, and active you are in the space. But for me, it was really an opportunity to not be a brick in the wall, to see this industry transform. There were a lot of bankers which were scratching at the surface, or traditional financiers scratching at the surface of impact investing, and there was some impact investors that needed more financial skills, so to speak. These were the two extremes. And I thought it was a good opportunity to upskill, to expand my network with specialists, and to satisfy a certain curiosity, both as a consumer of information and as a contributor. And this led to action. This led to joining the course. For me, it was very refreshing and empowering. The topics were spot on. I found that the alumni, as you can see now, the participants were very diverse and really brought different perspectives. And so I'm happy to have been part of this community of change makers. I really feel we share the same values around impact investing, around financial innovation and impact measurement and management. So for me, it was really about living my values and finding a group of change makers to push an agenda forward. And this one can be defined and refined over time as well. So this was the relationship with the course. And the course, actually, someone was presenting their company during the course, and I ended up having a business partnership with IXO World, which is a technology-driven kind of, now they're positioned as AI for impact and ecosystem launchpads. And so the course really materialized into something extremely legitimate and valuable for me in my professional career. And then from there on, I could take different steps in that same direction. So this is the contribution, let's say, the course in a very small amount of time. More about the company, perhaps, and the idea to set up a company is not new. It was just a question of how do I bring all this prior knowledge and this new network and ideas and energy together. And so I decided to found Advise. And you can see in the name, I'm pretty straightforward about how to leverage technology and governance to have a large impact. And so I identified 3 impact pathways: innovative policy, digital public infrastructure, and impact finance. And so this is the for-profit section as an advisor. And then we have a not-for-profit part, which is very comparable to an incubator, and I'll tell you why later. So we have 3 programs there: Regen Agility, and the idea is to incubate very promising ideas and move them into the business space that go around and support the regenerative economy. So it's no longer about sustainability, it's about regeneration. So we're taking a step in the, instead of, we're taking a step into the regenerative space. So really valuing biodiversity in nature and alignment with values and economic activities. Then we've got AI infrastructures, which is the second program in there. And it's both a physical and digital infrastructure. So the technical enablers of the space, again, the most promising ideas. And then we have the AI railguard space. It's more a space where we can ensure that experimentation and piloting doesn't go with unintended consequences. But this is the not-for-profit section. So it's distinctively two kind of projects in parallel that feed into each other.
Thank you so much, Greg.
You're welcome.
I would like to know some of the successes that you have achieved at Adway since joining the program. And again, a reminder to the audience, we'll be happy to answer any questions you have for Greg. So please pop them in the Q&A if you have any questions.
Thank you, Christine. Absolutely. Carrie, could you please change slides? Thank you. Well, since the program, there were some successes and some failures. And from the failures, we take a learning path and we see how we can integrate this for the further successes in life. So today, I'm proud of being a partner here in Switzerland with iGravity, which is an impact advisory and asset manager, very well established, but one of the youngest ones in the space. And I'm supporting them with their emerging debt strategy. So that's a success story that's in the making, per se. And I've managed to connect the co-head of investments with multiple partners worldwide. And I'm still in the process of doing that. And I wouldn't have been able to do that without the contacts I got through the course. So a big heads up to to the course, of course. I've been very active in the regenerative finance agriculture space and was in the process of developing a financial product for regenerative agriculture. We realized we were a bit too early then. So in terms of intellectual stimulation, I can say it was a success. In terms of rollout, it's still work in progress, and also connecting to different models of regenerative agriculture in Africa. And currently with Voguera, a coffee producer in Madagascar. Other successes more in the tech space were partnering with ICSO and the water protocols. So they're quite advanced on the technology side. And they really gave me a trampoline into what was possible with technology. Very inspiring from this point of view. And currently in very interesting discussions with local Swiss partners to set up investment funds and grow their SMEs in South America. But this is a work in progress. In terms of achievements like tangible and visible, I've been very active in Switzerland since then, working on solar panel projects. It's a great opportunity to reach the Paris agreements, at least one part of them. So really focused on renewable energy. With the war on the Eastern Front, I thought it was good to, and the subsidies available to really push on solar panel projects. So this year I reached 50 plus solar panel projects executed in Switzerland with 2 organizations. One is a sociocracy and does more kind of roofs of homes of families, and the other one is more B2B business, and it's crowd-funded finance. So you can actually own different parts of solar panel projects as an individual. So that's fascinating from a market-making perspective and marketplace creation perspective. I also had the opportunity to perform research for the UNDP on impact investing in Arab countries. And this was a more systemic research exercise to see what systems were in place that we could already leverage and align in filling the finance gap to reach the Sustainable Development Goals, and which ones could be further developed for that same reason. On the field, I had the opportunity to move to Africa in the middle of COVID. I'm not going to lie, I ran away from Europe. It was a bit hard. And the average age in most of Africa is quite low, and so it wasn't a priority for them. So what was fantastic with the Tony Blair Institute, I got to support the government of Togo as an investment advisor and be the impact single point of contact for that country. And so it was a hands-on experience, really going from sourcing to due diligence to all the stakeholder management, etc. And finally, I work a lot with the local community here in Zurich. Try to keep the impact also with the local community by guaranteeing spaces for expression, for good mental health for our youth, and kind of inclusive practices to movement. And so these are the few successes, and some of them were still work in progress, some of them failures. But in any case, I know that in the next few years, I will focus a little bit more on the public digital infrastructure side, given the inflection point we're in right now with various technologies emerging, including AI. And yeah, we might see things like public value agents appearing, tokenized outcomes being exchanged, valued, and traded, and more on AI foreign policy. And this in a nutshell, yeah.
Thank you so much, Greg. Yes, so many achievements in a nutshell, indeed, and that's an impressive list of successes. Thank you for sharing them with us. Would you say that any of these achievements you mentioned are direct results of being on the impact investing program?
Absolutely. I see them in part as, so the effect of the program continues after the program. And my best takeaway, and what I really recommend to most people, is that the caliber and the quality of the people you meet on the program is an absolute gem of network. And if you're interested in collaboration, this is the place where you can really reach out and reach the effects, the results that you want and the outcomes as per measurement. I'm even still interested. I did the Oxford Impact Executive Impact Investing Program 2020. I'm extremely interested still nowadays to join the IMM course, or even the innovative finance, all these which are constantly evolving. And so absolutely, I think it was a big stepping stone, and not just technically with the access to this knowledge and this exchange also, because it's fair to say that we were also providing knowledge as an input for research somehow. But in terms of the access to a body of knowledge and the network, I think that the course certainly had a very positive impact on my route, my journey so far.
Thank you so much. That's excellent. Thanks for sharing that, Greg. And just to add to what Greg mentioned, yes, we do have world-class faculty teaching on the program, and that doesn't include only theories. We also have speakers who are actual practitioners who are sharing real world knowledge that you can easily apply to whatever context or sector you're coming from. I think Greg also just shared the link to his company Adway, so you can have a look at all the exciting projects they're doing right now. And also, just to add to what Greg mentioned about the network piece, this is something that we really are passionate about in what we provide to our participants and alumni. So we factor a lot of social time during the program so that you can have some quality time to really get to know your colleagues on the program, so that you could learn from each other and also build those strategic networks. And those connections will continue for a very long time, because we also add you to a WhatsApp group that you have access to for as long as you would like. And that includes all of our impact alumni from when we first started our first ever impact program more than 10 years ago. All right, so yeah, that's Greg and his work in Adways in a nutshell. We will circle back to any additional questions, but for now, I think I'm ready to introduce our last speaker. So our last speaker is also an alumnus of our Impact Investing program. So we have Alain Nsiona Defise. So Alain is of Congolese heritage and based in London. He's the founder and CEO of Nsiona Impact Limited, a consulting firm focused on capital mobilization for sustainable development across emerging and frontier markets. So Alain, over to you.
Thank you, Christine, and hello, everyone. I hope you can hear me and see me okay. So I'm really glad to have the opportunity to introduce a bit about myself, my new business, and my learnings from the program. I am a Belgian from Congolese descent. I was born in Kinshasa, and I've actually spent the last 26 years investing in emerging market fixed income. And I have to say that the program came at a right junction for me, because it was it's just a few weeks ago when you think about it, but it came at a junction where I was in a dual transition. First transition is to move from the world of being an employee. I've been an employee for all my professional life, to becoming an entrepreneur, and also from the world of traditional finance to move into impact investment. And my key expectations joining the program was to get more technical knowledge, to know a bit more of, to be more articulate when I talk about impact. because I used to delegate that to some of my colleagues in the company who are really specialized on sustainability. And I have to say, I got even more than that, because what I got from the program is actually a new perspective on how to look and how to manage my business. So in a nutshell, what do? We are bridging the gap between development finance, what you see on the right side of the chat, and capital markets. And we do that in two ways. First, by making sure that we can curate transactions and actually structure them coming from the impact world in a way that they become actually investable for asset managers. So that's one way of doing things. We are in conversations with DFIs at the moment, and we help them with their mobilizations towards asset managers. What we do also is sometimes at an earlier stage is to provide market readiness, to make sure that these projects, even if they're not ready to come to the market now, that they go into the right direction. For example, we will join the SDG Investment Fair in New York in about 2 weeks' time, where the United Nations, that comes on the back of the Seville meetings, Finance for Development in Seville. There's going to be a lot of projects being presented there from governments and from private institutions. And our role would be to provide the lens of asset managers and see how we could tweak some of these projects. So that's what we do. Now, what were the learnings from the program for me? I would take 3 examples in terms of mindsets that are really striking for me. First is the mindset of making sure that communities come first. It's very easy when you come from a world of investment, and you like to measure everything, whether it's reporting or all measure return aspects, measure the sustainability aspects, but actually to engage with the communities first is very important. We have this case with a project we're working on now in the Democratic Republic of Congo. It's a mining refinery, cobalt mining refinery. It's a project, so it's very much greenfield. And our role is to help the project promoters to actually mine it differently in DRC. And one of the things we're doing is putting that to work now. So we ask them to engage with the communities first. So that's very important. The second one is actually to be ambitious. And when you look at this slide, it's easy to think that, well, we look at it transaction per transaction, we move one transaction, but I would be bold and ambitious in the virtuous cycle that we can create, like depicted at the bottom of the slide. Because our view is that if we bring more, let's take the example of Africa, generally speaking. There's very little presence of Africa in the emerging market world at the moment on the pure risk return side. If we boost the presence of these issuers, our view is that as they become any more presence in indices and in portfolios, there will be a higher familiarization from investors. That in turn will lead to a diminishing of the gap between the perceived risk and the actual risk, i.e. the risk premium, and that in turn will lead to better access. So it's quite of a bold, and it's a big statement, and I'm very happy to engage with anybody who has a view on this. And I think it's a collective, something we have to do collectively, but we believe that this is excellent for bringing more impact to the communities. And the last thing I would say for anybody contemplating the program, I would say that it's great to really be proactive in the way we engage. I see some of my colleagues here talking about the network. It's absolutely true. And I realized so much that the program was also there to help me, not just to provide me with knowledge, but to actually help me in my new venture. But it was up to me to go and look for that help. It was up to me to engage with the the teachers and the colleagues. So I really enjoyed it. And I would invite anybody to engage and to ask further questions. That's a short intro.
Thank you so much for what you shared, Alain. Yes, that's very interesting to find out about your work at Nsiona. And actually, Alain joined our last iteration of impact investing, which was just in February of this year, wasn't it? It was such a fun program. So I would like to ask the first question to you, Alain, because I think, well, hopefully the insights are still a bit fresh in your mind. So what was the part of the program that you most enjoyed during your time with us?
Wow, the part of the program that I most enjoyed. I have to say it's difficult to choose. I really like the debate. That was a lot of fun. In that Oxford tradition of debate, live debates about the benefits and the shortfalls of AI with the experts on both sides. That was real fun. I also enjoyed the presentation that we had to make at the end, because although it was hard work, it's a pretty intense program, and we had to prepare the presentation of our case in parallel to that. But the delivery, the fact that it was so much fun, although very informative, that's something that I will keep in my memories for a while.
That's excellent. And for sure, you have personally contributed to the fun part. I know. We have the most amazing, brilliant, talented participants on the program. They just surprise us of what they come up with in their presentations. So that's amazing. There is another question for you, Alain, on the chat. And this is coming from Dwayne. So Dwayne is asking, what are some of the latest innovative funding structures you have seen used in practice in the impact investing landscape? We can ask them that to Alain, and also if anyone else wants to answer that, if any of our other speakers, Hanne and Greg, can answer this question as well. But over to you first, Alain.
So thank you for the question. In terms of innovative structures, I've seen two that I found quite interesting. I've seen the IFC running a CLO structure where they securitize a few of their loans and brought them to the market. That was on a concessional funding, so that there was a bit of an insurance to it, so to improve the rating. That was interesting. I also like the Women Livelihood Bond from a company called I'm always confusing. It's IIX, based in Singapore, where they also securitize a few bonds that they provide to women-led businesses in Asia, and they package that into an instrument that they sell also into the market. So these were two kind of interesting structures that allow to mobilize at a certain scale. These are the two that came in mind.
Thanks very much, Alain. Hanne or Greg, do you have anything to add to that?
Maybe just something to add that was really interesting, at least in Switzerland, and could be exported as a model, as a marketplace making configuration. So with Solarify, there's a very interesting approach to financing that takes place. It's essentially crowdfunded. So anyone in Switzerland, so it has to be obviously legally compliant to local legislation, etc. But anyone in Switzerland can own part of these projects. So the company goes out and installs all these solar panel projects, and then it's financed by you or by anyone XYZ in Switzerland, and they can have a choice if they have a derived income through it as it resells to the grid. And I thought, if the capital markets and the banks can't keep up with the need to finance these renewable energy projects abroad. I mean, in emerging countries, certain of them. Can we not look at creating a global marketplace for this model? Is it replicable on a national basis, or is it also potentially replicable by creating a global marketplace, kind of peer-to-peer financing? But I thought that was very interesting, and so far it works, but it's still depending on subsidies to a certain extent.
Thank you so much for
You're
adding
welcome.
to that, Greg. Amazing. So I think right now we would like to move on to the Oxford experience. I know that I can see a question in the Q&A box about the difference between Oxford Finance innovation and impact measurement programs. I'll speak on that a little bit later. But over to Hanne to speak about her experience in Oxford. We've shared some of the photos of what we do, of our activities during the program, and Hanne will be able to speak about some of these. Over to you, Hanne.
Sure, thank you. So, well, I think one thing that I would really like to emphasize is the uniqueness of simply being at Oxford. So I studied in the UK, but I didn't go to Oxford, and being able to hear, for example, on both courses, we were fortunate enough to have a fantastic dinner organized in one of the colleges, in a traditional college style. Coming together after having spent, I think, 3-4 days together, having that true sort of Oxford experience with all of our amazing speakers and facilitators coming with us as well. That is a truly unique experience. And it also sort of fostered such, I think, unique bonds and dynamics between everyone. I didn't include a picture of it here, but I do. After this dinner, we went on to one of the close by sort of old traditional pubs where people also kind of got to know each other. Turned out that there were multiple musicians and singers in our cohort, who then decided to get together in some of the breaks the next day, which was the final day. And they created a song about the importance of investing in impact and understanding impact. And that was one of the, so just on the topic of, people's unique skill sets coming through. So it's not just about diverse financial backgrounds, but also it really sort of fostered so much engagement and also positivism. Because I think a little bit to what Greg was alluding to as well in his presentation. You're kind of moving from sometimes a world that is, there's a lot of negativism and sometimes questioning sort of the direction the world is heading, and just kind of coming together and realizing that there's so many incredibly talented people out there who are really sort of striving to make a difference in their own way, in their own context. But then that culminating into into a song performance about impact was really unique, but also signifies sort of the degree to which people are willing to really sort of put themselves out there and share, and be present and not take themselves too seriously either.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Hanne, for mentioning that. So yes, impact, finance, these are quite heavy subjects, and you do work very intensely during the program. We offer you a lot of insights of learning, and you also work quite hard on your presentations during the program, and we make sure that we balance that by giving you opportunities to have fun. And yeah, this is the amazing thing about our cohorts, is because we bring in so much diversity on our programs from different sectors, different countries and regions, and of course all the different personalities and talents also get discovered during the program. So thank you for mentioning that, Hanne. Okay, so I think we will move on to the next part, the final part of our webinar, which is basically just talking a little bit about our programs. And you might want to reflect on whether any of these programs resonate with you and if you would like to use them for the next stage of your career development. So I would like to speak about the different programs in our portfolio, and I will speak to them based on the dates that they're happening. So the next one in our calendar is the Oxford Impact Measurement Program. So what I'm going to share with you now is who our programs are for and what they cover. So the Impact Measurement Program is for senior professionals who are directly responsible for defining, measuring, and using impact, including leaders from NGOs, social enterprises, foundations, DFIs, corporates, and investment organizations who need robust decision-relevant impact measurement and management frameworks. Okay, and the second program happening in November is the Impact Finance Innovations Program. It is aimed at more finance-driven and technically experienced participants, typically those working in funds, family offices, foundations, development finance, or corporates who are structuring and deploying capital through blended, innovative, or outcomes-based finance mechanisms. And then finally, the Oxford Impact Investing Program is designed for a broad cross-section of impact investors and capital allocators, from asset managers and family offices to foundation leaders, DFIs, and social entrepreneurs who are seeking to align capital with systems-level impact while navigating complex trade-offs between financial return and social outcomes. So those are our various impact programs. And I'd just like to share this next page, which is the dates of our upcoming programs. You'll see that the Oxford Impact Measurement Program is coming up very soon, delivering on the 15th to the 19th of June this year. And applications are still ongoing. Please, if you're interested in this program, this is the program that one of the programs that Hanne studied with us, and the deadline is the 8th of May. And then we have our Oxford Sustainable Business Program happening in September, and followed by our Oxford Impact Finance Innovations Program, the other program that Hanne studied as well, the 9th to the 13th of November. And lastly, next year, early in February, 1st to the 5th of February, is our Oxford Impact Investing Program. And this is the program that Greg and Alain took with us. So we have our QR code there. You can click on it on your phone, and it will take you to our application form. You'll also see the links of this programs on our website. And we will also be sharing this on the follow-up email that we will be sending. And I'd also like to mention that we have a YouTube playlist which feature recordings of our webinars that runs quarterly. The recordings of these webinars, including this one that you are on now, will also be emailed soon, along with information about our programs. So please keep an eye on your inbox for that. And lastly, I would like to also share that your incentive for joining us today and staying up until the end is that if you do decide to apply to one of our programs, you get a 10% off for spending your time with us and for being so engaged, such an amazing audience. So please don't miss the 10% promotion. You just go to our application form, choose the program you're applying for, and use the code webinar 10 on the section how did you find out about the program. Okay, so that's just a little incentive for you. And lastly, of course, please connect with us. You're sharing our email here, and you can find us on LinkedIn as well. We'll be happy to engage with you and answer any questions you may have about our programs. Okay, and now we are on time. It's 3 o'clock in British summertime. So unfortunately, we have to draw our webinar to a close. But I'd like to close by thanking our amazing speakers today. We are so grateful for your time and for being excellent ambassadors for our programs. Thank you to our audience for joining us. We hope it's been helpful and insightful, and we look forward to keeping in touch. Thank you. Thanks for
so
all the
much.
appreciation on the chat. Thank you. And
Thank you for having us. Bye.
you're very welcome. Thank you so much for your time. We really enjoyed having you in the program. And thank you everyone for joining us.